Hi, my name is Ilan. I'll be the first to present in May 20th's second reading, Henry Jenkins's What Happened Before YouTube. So just an overview of how our presentation's been structured. There were 7 sections in the reading, which we split amongst ourselves. I'll be presenting the introduction and the first large section titled Garage Cinema and the Do-It-Yourself Newsroom. After that, Allison, Yuqi, Lydia, and Fran will be presenting the subsequent sections, as you can see in the slide. In the introduction, Jenkins lays out the foundation of his argument, which is shown in this quote: emergence of participatory cultures of all kinds over the past several decades paved the way for the early embrace, quick adoption, and diverse use of such platforms as YouTube. He argues that though much was new about YouTube, there were methods of media distribution before June 2005, the creation of YouTube. He argues that the world was very prepared for something like YouTube, specifically in the standardization of DIY media sharing. YouTube thus seemed to spring up overnight in its instant popularity, but really he says this isn't all that surprising because of the readiness of DIY media production for something like this common platform like YouTube. So in the first section, Garage Cinema and the Do-It-Yourself Newsroom, the key concept is that early methods, as I mentioned, of pre-YouTube amateur content creation and distribution were zines, music mixtapes, and later home videos, which we know segued very well into the early days of YouTube. Jenkins reminds us that zines were part of the political and cultural avant-garde of the 1970s and 80s, in his words, alongside the rise in popularity of punk rock and riot grrrl feminism. Jenkins quotes Stephen Duncombe's 1997 book, Notes from the Underground, Zines and the Politics of Alternative Culture, in highlighting the zine culture's attachment to the DIY and to self-built communities, which we see today as very important to the YouTube sphere. Specifically, this zine culture rejected traditional mass media and highlighted the community creation, which Jenkins, again, argues that paved the road for YouTube culture as we see it today.
Let's now move to the second part, the gathering of the claims. Bankler, in his book, The Wiles of Networks, offers an argument for why a place like YouTube might be generative. Through the content, we can summarize the answer as our key concept. YouTube is a platform for cross-cultural exchange and understanding. Participatory culture as its ethos, you can always feel there is a strong desire among YouTube members to be involved, have a voice, and create change. It is the spirit of participation that encourages people to communicate cross-culturally and access various perspectives. So, a participatory culture is one which not only lowers the barriers to participation, but also creates strong social incentives to produce and share what one produces with others. Arguably, many people are taking advantage of the distribution platform YouTube provides, in part because they feel the emotional support of a community eager to see their productions. Also, these practices make their practitioners better readers of their own culture and more self-reflective and critical of the culture they occupy, thereby enabling them to become more self-reflective participants in conversations within that culture. More precisely, YouTube is a shared space where many different cultural flows intersect and diversely motivated media producers brush against each other. In the text, the Harry Potter Alliance campaign against Walmart offers us a vivid example of this cultural practice. The Harry Potter Alliance encouraged the generation of young people who learn to read and write from Harry Potter books to also use J.K. Rowling's world as a platform for civic engagement. Several online campaigns were also launched which merged fan cultural production with activist politics. During one campaign, the Harry Potter Alliance partnered with Walmart Watch to make a video where Harry discovered that the traditional business in Diagonal Alley have been closed by you-know-which superstore and must do battle with Lord Voldemort, which personifies Walmart in order to criticize its sinister practices. The YouTube circulation of this proof in turn drove traffic back to Walmart Watch website. This example illustrates what makes YouTube generative has everything to do with the ways YouTube has been adopted by various participatory cultures. Innovation spread rapidly in such a context as experiments within one community spill over into others, Groups which might otherwise have had little or no contact are generating new hybrid models of cultural politics, which depend on temporary and tactical alliances between interests.
In the section You Can't Stop the Signal, Jenkins talks about ambivalences and anxieties arising from the uncontrollable circulation of media content. Distinct technical affordances allow videos to be into diverse cultural economics and social ecologists. The circulation of media content becomes uncontrollable, and this makes amateur media producers fear for copyright violation and viewers' lack of understanding to their culture. Therefore, these amateur producers need to choose whether to upload their videos to big platforms like YouTube or to less popular platforms like the one that are only open to people in the same cultural communities. They also need to choose whether becoming pros or not. If they want to become pro, they can connect the finished work with professional works and work in the entertainment industry with their skills in editing. This might help with the recognition of their skills, as well as the recognition of the queer culture in the wide viewing world. Here I come up with an example of a Chinese video website, which is called Youku. This website co-produced its own dramas, and it ordered another platform to remove fanwits which use clips of dramas from Youku. The Youku platform then launched the removed ones to its own website without consent from the original amateur readers. This example shows both the issue of copyright and the blurring line between amateur and pro. Amateur readers' videos are professionally used for commercial interests, and these readers to some extent become pro in this process, but their works are not paid. In fact, more and more readers in China are invited by video websites to produce fan videos for dramas that the websites own, and some are paid for their works as professionals. This issue is also associated with the next section in Jenkins' article, which talks about the gift economy and commodity culture.
This will be a discussion of the section The Gift Economy Meets Commodity Culture. As you can see, I've listed two key terms, gift economy and commodity culture. The bidding community has argued that their creative content embodies a gift economy because it will benefit the user in the form of a gift. Jenkins explains that a gift economy allows the free distribution of goods, while on the other hand, a commodity culture is one driven by financial incentives rather than exchange of gifts. The bidding community argues that YouTube is disrupting the free exchange of gifts by monetizing the platform through advertising revenue, and as a result, it is ruining the social structure of the community. This community is pushing for non-profit channels. The backlash can be seen through the Greek Manifesto, as it strongly argues against the monetization of creative videos by stating, "This is ours. It will always be ours. You will never grok it unless you become one of us. Do not try to make it yours." The establishment of the Organization for Transformative Works is another effort aimed at taking back control. The OTW is working to create non-commercial sites and platforms while constructing a legal defense for their creative content. In conclusion, the bidders and fan community want to reassert their control over their content and not be manipulated through YouTube's financial incentives. I will now discuss this section, the case of activist video. In 1991, home footage of the Los Angeles police beating Rodney King was circulated, revealing the reality of police brutality. This amateur footage inspired musician Peter Gabriel to launch Witness, a human rights organization, in order to expand the video production technology so that oppressed people worldwide could speak back to power. The emergence of YouTube has made creating and sharing videos increasingly easier, especially in allowing people to distribute and respond to human rights abuses. Sam Gregory, a Witness activist, argues that the downside of mass video distribution is decontextualization of the original video. With the ability to embed, share, edit, and remix videos, the original message, intention, or meaning can be changed or erased. Thus, Jenkins discusses the creating of the hub site to support the sharing of human rights videos with the already committed activists, even as it continues to circulate at least some of materials through YouTube. This can also curb malintent. Lastly, Jenkins discusses AstroTurf, which he states as fake grassroots media content produced by commercial media companies and special interest groups, but it appears to be coming from amateurs with genuine intent. He also introduces an example of the DCI Group, a commercial advertising firm with clients such as General Motors and ExxonMobil. They pose as a single user and create animation called Al Gore's Penguin Army. The bottom line is that examples of AstroTurf are known because the YouTube community found them suspicious and collectively worked to find the root source. I will now show a quick excerpt from Indigenous Voices, an example of an activist video.
Of course, with any family, there's obviously history, right? Our DNA goes deep, deep, deep into the soil. We are a part of this land. We're all the same people, surrounded by a world that you can't really explain. When you accept that, the mysticism of our ways becomes real. We want to break barriers and invite people in to learn about us, to learn together. Because in the end, you have to experience these stories for yourself.
A key concept of the plentitude and diversity section of the reading is that participatory culture is not necessarily a diverse culture, but it is actually very inclusive and unequal. People have an uneven access to the means of participation, and many are discouraged from even trying to participate. Some forms of cultural production are embraced within the mainstream tastes of site visitors and commercial interests of the site owners. Other forms of cultural production are pushed to the margins as falling outside of dominant interests and tastes, and others are excluded altogether. Another way to see this theme is to think of the fact that to use YouTube you need a certain level of skill, and this promotes inequalities in the sense that you need a certain level of technology, and some only have public access to the platform, which limits their ability to even post videos. YouTube pushes up content which receives support from other users. This can be seen through the recommended section of YouTube. It may seem democratic, but they have the effect of hiding minority perspectives. You consider the unequal characteristics of participation, another concept arises. There are long-term effects of something called the participation gap. Stephen Tepper and Bill Ivey define what the long-term effects of this participation gap will be. Those who have the education, resources, time, and skill will gain access to new cultural opportunities. They will find audiences for their work. They will discover new forms of cultural expression that engage their passions and help them forge their own identities. And those who have less time, resources, education, and skill will rely on the cultural fare offered to them by consolidated media and entertainment conglomerates, and these citizens will be trapped on the wrong side of the cultural divide. So technology and economic change are conspiring to make a new cultural elite and a new cultural underclass. Jenkins further relates this to YouTube by stating the fact that YouTube provides an inexhaustible supply of user-generated content that may stop us from wondering which materials are not found on YouTube. My outside source was The Participatory Condition by Barney et al. The participatory condition is a term coined by Henry Jenkins, which focuses on critically examining the alleged participatory nature attributed to media, and unearths other forms of participation that might be obscured by excessive promises of digital utopias. Contemporary participation has been the cause of many of our successes, but also many of our downfalls. 20th century modernity caused anxieties about media short-circuiting participation. The common conclusion from this article is that although certain attributes of digital media facilitate participation, these attributes alone do not encompass the possibilities, promises, or deceptions of participatory practices. Rather, digital media offers environments that are ripe for the unfolding of the participatory condition. The political agony of the participatory condition is that it can neither be embraced nor disavowed without considerable loss. We are not happy with participation, but if we were to lose it, we would be sad. And to conclude, this is our works cited. We hope you enjoyed.